Very good morning to all of you. This is Dr. Tamanna Khosla from India, and today the topic of which we are going to deal with is Xi Jinping's political philosophy and how it has its impact on the contemporary world. So, now, China has a new official political doctrine since 2012, and it's called Xi Jinping's Thought, and it's everywhere. Schools, newspapers, televisions, the internet, the billboard, the banners, all trumpet the ideas of Mr. Xi, the country's president and Communist Party leader. Officially known as Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, the ideology will soon be given an even more prominent platform, the preamble of the Chinese constitution. Boiled down, the doctrine is blueprint for consolidating and strengthening power at the three levels: the nation, the party, and Mr. Xi himself. The doctrine, like Mr. Xi, is not going anywhere soon. It's something which is to do with Mao Zedong's ideas as well as Deng Xiaoping's ideas. So the party on Sunday abolished, in 2012, abolished the presidential term limit, meaning Mr. Xi could remain in power indefinitely. Here, your guide could understand, it's a major understanding that, now the contemporary China is looking at the world from Mr. Xi's political thought. Mr. Xi has co-authored many books on political philosophy of China, and he's a political science student. Has been a political science student, so that affects the way he looks at the world as well. Since Mr. Xi became the chairman of Communist Party in 2012, he has vowed a great rejuvenation to restore China to its in ancient prominence and glory. In recent decades, China has become the world's second largest economy and a powerhouse of global trade and investment. Xi's thoughts promotes taking the next step, making China not only prosperous but also politically powerful. Never before have the Chinese people been so close to realizing their dreams. And this is what Mr. Xi's aim is. To sustain China's global rise, Mr. Xi is modernizing Chinese military and investing heavily in a 1 trillion international trade initiative known as the Belt and the Road. So that's a very important um, project which China has been doing with Africa and many of the other countries in Southeast Asia. So, but that's like I'm putting people into heavy debt. People, as in like the countries. So yeah, under Mr. Xi, China has expanded its size and scope of its military, purged corrupt officers, and built military installations in contested waters of South China Sea. So, Mr. Xi's national message for China is as a strong, highly respected world power resonates with many Chinese. But the promise of national glory comes with a catch: single party rule. Xi Jinping's thought promotes the supremacy of Communist Party to growing numbers of avid consumers, internet users, and world travelers. So, harping on the importance of one party rule is not new in China, but she has taken aggressive steps to revitalize the Communist Party grip on business, the news media, the internet, the culture and education, and everywhere. If you look at the sports, the way, it's not something, it's not a joke that, the way, uh, Chinese have been performing brilliantly in sports. It's also a lot to do with what Mr. Xi as policies as far as sports are concerned. Children are pushed into being a good athlete. So the third piece of Mr. Xi's thought is Mr. Xi himself. Central to the doctrine of is the idea that for China to continue its global rise and for the party to maintain its rule, a decisive leader is needed at the helm, and the main job is by Mr. Xi. Um, and then if you look at on the Chinese plan to enhance the trust, Mr. Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era advocates putting mutual respect and trust in the forefront, emphasizing the need to persist in seeking common ground while reserving differences, gathering and assimilating differences, and enhancing strategic mutual trust and reducing mutual suspicion through frank and profound dialogue and communication. It is proposed to adhere to the correct concept of righteousness and benefit. Put righteousness first, take both righteousness and benefit into consideration, and build a global partnership with a common destiny. Strengthen exchanges and dialogues among different civilization. I mean, that's what she's theory of communism states. And China's plan for world peace. Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era puts forward the concept of international exchanges based on dialogue rather than confrontation, and partnership rather than alliance. So the world also needs to understand a bit of, I mean, the tussle is right now between the East and the West. So people also need to understand Chinese philosophy, what Xi Jinping's philosophy is. So that's going to be the point of reconciliation between the two civilizations. One on one side the Chinese civilization, on the other side the Western civilization, and China's program on world development and Xi Jinping's thoughts on socialism advocate an open, inclusive, and balanced win and win type of globalization, advocates the development of innovative coordination, green openness, and sharing, advocating the concept of open, integrated, mutually beneficial, and win win cooperation put forward by Belt and Road Initiative. To judge whether a theory has become a scientific system, it is mainly dependent on whether it contains a distinct theme, whether its systematic answers a series of basic questions raised by its era, whether its rigorous logic or and complete structure, and continues to open up and develop. Uh, Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics is such an open scientific system that integrates epocality and systematization and originality. So, for example, Engels pointed out the theoretical thinking of every era, including of our times, is the product of history. And so she has reformed Marxism, which was based on certain principles. With now, this is a socialism with Chinese principles, and what Xi's plan is to ensure Communist Party of China leadership over all form of work in China, uniting the country. Communist Party of China should take people-centric approach from the public interest, the continuation of comprehensive deepening of reforms, adopting new science-based ideas of innovative coordination, and improving people's livelihood and well-being in primary level of development, coexist well with nature and with energy conservatism and environmental protection policies, and contribute to global ecological safety, strengthen the national security of China. The Communist Party of China should have absolute leadership over China's People Liberation Army, promoting the one country two system for Hong Kong and Macau, with a future of complete national reunification, and to follow one China principle and 1992 consensus for Taiwan. Establish a common destiny between Chinese people and other people around the world with a peaceful international environment. Uh, Improving parties' discipline, and also regarding Xi Jinping as the sole leader of the CCP. So yeah, so so uh, what is the nature of socialism with Chinese characteristic is a pertinent question which we need to address. And because China is such a big and powerful country, we have to engage with Xi Jinping's political philosophy and his the ones who are like behind his thought. So, like in Russia, for example, you have I mean, Russian and Chinese thought somewhere has a link. Obviously, because Chinese and Russians have followed a certain trajectory, though based on national issues, but definitely a trajectory whereby both of them followed communism, a very strict state system. And so Putin and Mr. Xi Jinping have developed a very mutually beneficial system for both of them, which is going to lead to no distinction between um, the distinction between um main thought of both the countries. So what we need to understand is, right now, the ones who have been isolated, these countries, because Russia was being isolated, so was Chinese in a certain way. They could not be ignored because of their prosperity. But because these two great countries are coming together, it's a major challenge for the world right now. So we need to understand that these countries, their thought, that people who are behind the thought, Putinism, for example, or Xi Jinping's thoughts, have to be understood in proper way. And also, there should be a way of engaging with them. I mean, every country has their own leadership and their own way of looking at things. But here, what we need to understand is that there are certain principles which are similar in both Russia and China, because of the Marxist legacy, as well as, prior to, because both these countries have been great civilizations. So we need to understand they have their own visions. So we can't, nobody can, no, West cannot impose itself on these countries. They will never adhere to them. So yeah, so what we need to understand is that uh, Xi Jinping is a person of, I mean, what we need to understand is he is somebody who is like believing in national reconstruction, as a one party, one man army kind of a thing. And so what we need to understand is that uh, it's a socialism with scientific uh, mechanism relevant, which is looking at the world in a way that is which is more comprehensive. I mean, it has a vision for the world. And that is why any thought, for example, which has a vision for the world, is worth being called a thought. And so is Mr. Xi's policies. So I mean, Comrade Xi Jinping, for example, he believed in profound insight, keen judgments, and determination of Marxist politicians, theorists, and strategists. Put forward a series of groundbreaking new ideas, etc. All great ideas carry their founders' own value stance and value judgment. I mean, it's a fact. I mean, anybody, any leader, for example, when they come with a thought, they come with a background, and so does Mr. Xi. So he was born in a revolutionary family with a red family style tutor, and received a strict revolutionary traditional educational from an early age, which enabled him to establish a firm belief in communism and socialism, and a heroic feeling of revolutionary ideas are higher than heaven. So, and his parents were also hardcore believers in communism. So yeah, and what we also need to understand is that I mean, Xi Jinping was a policy which was more followed by, I mean, he got a lot of help from his lineage, which was connected to the Communist Party at that time. So I mean, that's what we need to understand. And the process of emergence of leaders of political party is a process of historical selection, as well as process of constantly shaping and testing the character qualities of individuals. So it's a very strict country, which which is trying to put itself on the world map, through being extremely, I shouldn't say strict, but it's a very disciplined way of looking at things in the world. And that is why they're succeeding a lot. I mean, they are it's a disciplined way of looking at things in the world. And Mr. Xi has been able to establish Chinese democracy, as they would like to call it. And though the West differs, but democracy can be defined differently by different people, and there is no singular way of defining democracy. So we have to engage with the Xi's policies as well as his political philosophy, and get an answer to it. you know and uh, um, like these are the things which we need to understand, that uh, it's like the basis for socialism with Chinese characteristics is entering into a new era. It's not the same. It's not the Mao's China or Deng's China. It is Xi's China, a world which is like developed in technology, etc. And for example, as an Indian scholar, my own thought with Mr. Xi's policies is, I do agree with certain things, but I do not agree with others. But that's okay. There is no problem with that, because I mean, every thought has its resistance. Even if the best of the thoughts are there, there would be resistance to it. And I mean, the same happened in Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy, for example, or anybody else's philosophy. In India, for example, everybody has a thought on these things. And so also with Mr. Xi's philosophy. So uh, but the fact is that Mr. Xi's policies are based on Mr. Of solid historical foundations. So, Comrade Xi Jinping stressed on that socialism with Chinese characteristics did not fall from the sky, but was fundamental achievement achieved by the party and the people through thousands of hardships and at various costs, with profound historical origins and practical considerations. The entry of socialism with Chinese characteristics into a new era was realized in the continuous struggle of several generations of Chinese communists to establish a new China, etc. So the Chinese communists, mainly represented by Comrade Mao Zedong, integrated the basic tenets of Marxism-Leninism with the concrete practice of Chinese revolution founded Mao Zedong thought, united and led the whole party and people of all ethnic groups throughout the country. So then Deng Xiaoping theory made decisional shift from the focus to work of the party and state to economic construction. The historic policy decision to implement reform and opening up has profoundly revealed the nature of socialism, established a basic line for initial stages of socialism, etc. So this is what what before Mr. Xi's coming into power were the strong leaders. So he's the third strong leader of the Chinese heritage. And I mean, this is the whole thing. And so we will kind of like to understand that there are certain things that I mean, Chinese are not going to compromise with, be it territorial integrity, or be it economic structure, or the political philosophy of Chinese socialism with characteristics of Mr. Xi. Mr. Xi is a long-lived leader, and he is going to continue for being for quite some time, for his lifetime term. So yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. And so what we need to understand is that the best portion for the world would be to understand that Mr. Xi's policies are here to stay, and it can best be engaged with, so that most probably the world is able to understand the philosophy of it as well as engage with it. There should not be an enmity between people, between cosmopolitan, in a cosmopolitan world. And here we need a world which is more, uh, it is more, something which is defined in a way which is more structured, so that there is a space for everybody. There is no hatred for any ideology, but we need to understand, we need to empathize and understand the civilization. Many of the Confucius thought, for example, influenced Marxism in the contemporary Chinese world. So we need to understand that, and that's the best possible way of looking at things in the contemporary times. And Mr. Xi's thought is building up well, and it's being accepted in a certain world. Africans, for example, are now are being more agreeable to Russia and China, for example, and they feel that what kind of colonial dominance achieved over the years is being done away with, is needs to be done away with, and they should engage more with Russia and China. So the world needs to have their antes up and spruce up the game, and understand that they might just lose the race if they did not engage with Mr. Xi's thoughts. That's what I like to say. Thank you so much.